The New Orleans Pelicans are all the rage in the NBA these days. No team has been more dominant in the Western Conference thus far. The Pelicans are on a wild run. Winning 8 of their last 10 games, they find themselves at the top of the West. And doing all the good work for the team has been the ever-impressive Zion Williamson. Let's look at Zion's MVP charge and the Pelicans becoming contenders. Starting with Zion Williamson becoming a legit MVP candidate. The 360 windmill could have easily broken the board. While the board, however, survived, an unwritten NBA rule was certainly broken by Williamson, and it may be unnecessary. For some, it signaled two things. Zion is definitely up there with the best players and is truly an MVP candidate, and the Pelicans will be the team to beat in the West. More on the Pelicans later, but first, let's take a look at their superstar, who has been enjoying a spectacular comeback season. Averaging 25 points, the number 1 pick of the 2019 draft has enjoyed a well-deserved great run for the Pelicans and has been ripping it up this season. Everyone knew that Williamson, when on top of his game, is unstoppable. And while last season was quite ugly for him, he put in a lot of work behind the scenes and is back with a point to prove. The statistics speak for themselves, and the optics do too. With 25 points per game mixed together with 7.3 rebounds and 4.3 assists, Williamson is also helping out on the other end of the court. He averages over a steal per game and a block every other game. With those numbers, it's hardly a surprise that he's getting MVP shouts. He isn't in the running completely, of course, but if he keeps this run of form on, there's no reason why he can't challenge the likes of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Luka Doncic. Adding to that, Zion's recent run of form. If you look at Zion's first 2 seasons in the NBA, he's improved his scoring tremendously in the second year with 27 points per game. That was a large improvement considering he was scoring 22.5 points in his rookie season, and his assist and rebounding numbers were also up from his rookie season. But after missing the entire 2021 campaign, many believed that he would take some time to get back up to pace. That, fortunately, hasn't been an issue. Some might indicate that his scoring is down from the 2020-21 season, but if we take a holistic look, he's become well-rounded in his gameplay. Even if that is at the cost of a little bit of scoring, it's not an issue. From 27 ppg to 25 ppg, the difference is almost negligible, especially when you consider the fact that he's added creative playmaking and averages a lot more assists than the other 2 seasons. At the same time, he's added the defensive contribution part to his game too, but the recent run of form suggests that he's getting the scoring numbers back as well. In the last 8 games, Zion has scored nearly 30 points per game, and his oppositions were quality as well, considering he scored 35 each in both the outings against the Suns and 25 against the Nuggets as well. Plus, his shooting never wavers. While the star rarely takes shots from outside the 3-point line, he's extremely effective from inside it, and this year has been the same with him scoring 61% of his field goal attempts. Also, the Pelicans are legit contenders. Thanks to these impressive numbers from Zion Williamson, the Pelicans have become title contenders this season. They're definitely in the mix for the title as well. Leading the conference at the time of this video, the Pelicans are probably the most improved team this season. Last season, they finished 9th in the West and lost to the Suns in 6th, and it was a disappointing exit for them. In fact, those series were the reason that Zion Williamson absolutely hammered the Suns with that controversial 360 windmills to win the game. But this season, the Pelicans look like a completely different team. They're currently atop the rankings, and while that might be a little too good to be true, they'll definitely be one of the top 3 seeds in the current form once the regular season comes to a halt. And with that roster, don't forget New Orleans does not have the services of Brandon Ingram, their best player from last season. He's been missing for many games now, and once he's back in the 4, the Pelicans could potentially kick into another higher gear. That's scary to even imagine. In fact, they've got the perfect blend of talent as well. Younger talent mixed together with experienced superstars. It's the dream. The challenge for the Pelicans is, can they stay ahead of the Grizzlies and the other challengers in the West? And beyond that too, there are some seriously good teams in the East this season, with the Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks, and Cleveland Cavaliers all in contention. The playoffs will be fun for sure. Moving on, who can challenge the Pelicans for the title? Competition in the NBA keeps on getting tougher and tougher every year. It's hardly a surprise that this year has been extremely competitive from the get-go, and teams which were expected to tank are also producing some shocking results and performances. If the Pelicans are to go all the way, they'll know that their current performances need to be built on. Yes, they've done well, but they've got some tremendous names in their own conference which won't give up the fight easily. There's a rivalry brewing between the Pelicans and the Phoenix Suns. You've got a fantastic young roster in Memphis, which already has the joint best record in the West. The 2-time reigning MVP Nikola Jokic is leading leaving Denver, and they're looking really good with some returning players. Doncic-led Mavs and Lillard-led Blazers are also right in the mix. Even lower, you've got the defending champions, Warriors, shockingly, who have improved, and the Lakers seem to be gathering momentum too, after a rough start. So even getting out of the Western Conference isn't going to be straightforward and will take some real effort. But if they do make it to the NBA Finals, which would be an insane achievement, the path to glory won't get easier for the Pelicans. You don't want to face the extremely balanced Celtics side, which cruelly lost the finals last year, and you certainly wouldn't want to face Giannis-led Bucks either. The young roster of Cleveland is dangerous too, while the KD and Kyrie-led Nets have been in insane form. One thing's for certain, the playoffs are going to be amazing. Now, let's look at how the future of New Orleans isn't only dependent on Zion. There's no doubting the fact that Williamson's return has been the reason the Pelicans find themselves among the big boys. In fact, ahead of all the big boys in the West at least. But as it turns out, there's more to it than just Zion Williamson for the Pelicans if they want to stay successful for the next few years. Williamson might be the reason they're among that group, but it's also been down to some shrewd planning and fantastic recruiting from David Griffin and Trajan Langdon. Due to this, Willie Green, the coach, has one of the deepest rosters to his disposal, and it is due to this very reason that he has the luxury of choosing 11 players deep on any night. That's fantastic, of course, but it's the only luxury that the Pelicans have at their disposal. They remain one of the only two teams to never have paid a penny in luxury tax, and that might be where their next problem comes in. Unfortunately, despite the attempts at a level playing field, we don't have something remotely close to it in the NBA. The Pelicans are competing against the likes of the Clippers, the Nets, and the Warriors, teams that have to pay a shade under $600 million combined in just tax payments this year, and will probably spend more than $900 million and more on the payroll. This poses a massive issue for the Pelicans. Moreover, they are a part of the talks. The good thing for the New Orleans-based franchise is that they'll be at least a part of the talks that will shape the NBA for years to come. Most sides have already agreed on pushing back a deadline for a new collective bargaining deal. Similarly, there's been an agreement to clamp down on the leaks, and work is being done in secret with even other teams, not part of the negotiating committee, having been kept at a distance. The problem, though, is how the middle class of the league deals with the issue of the wild spending spree of other richer teams. The Pelicans have CJ McCollum running the labor talks for the NBPA, while Gayle Benson, the owner of the franchise, has a chair on the powerful owners committee, which will form the next league strategy. Everyone wants the answers to the same question: how do the teams keep their talent but also have parameters that allow talent to be dispersed? Players want free agency. Teams want competitive balance. It's always been like this, and it seems to be the same way for the years to come. Lastly, the Pelicans want to keep building. Like other teams, the Pelicans want to stay ahead of the challenge. It's very easy for teams to get caught in a rut, and that's why they know the challenge at hand is a tough one to deal with. The Pelicans find themselves in the discussions, and that presence at the big table is another reason that they might just keep building despite the obvious handicap in terms of financial strength. Of course, it would be something of a miracle if the Lakers end up finishing as one of the 6th worst teams in the league. Should that happen, everyone in New Orleans will have their fingers crossed for the Pelicans to land Victor Wembanyama. And if they were to do that, the Pelicans would definitely be much farther ahead of the curve and have very little to worry about for the next few years, at the very minimum. That's a wrap for this video. How far do you think the Pelicans can go this season? And can Williamson win the MVP? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.